Welcome to the Aegance Offscript Podcast, where we talk to industry leaders who share their stories, insights, and lessons unfiltered and unscripted. I'm your host, Lawrence, and today I'm thrilled to host Daisy Primett, the founder of the VA Office. Now, Daisy runs a business at the frontier of remote operations, helping clients outsource critical support through virtual assistants, whilst wrestling with the real tension of scaling high-touch services. Daisy, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you on.
Thank you.
Pardon me, after you.
No, as you said, my name's Daisy. I'm the founder and CEO of the VA Office. I'm based in Dubai, but obviously the business runs across all over the world. We can support business owners, entrepreneurs, startups, small and medium businesses, wherever they are based in the world. For me, it's more of just being a virtual assistant and providing admin assistant. It's a strategic oversight, really. I'm not just being somebody to support someone in the background. We'd like to class ourselves as a partner in the business and make sure that we're making a difference to help people reclaim their time back.
And tell us a little bit about how the VA office came to be. What was the initial vision that you saw?
Yeah, so I think there's two kind of sides to it. It's the wanting to help the clients. Dubai especially is a busy entrepreneurial city. Everyone is here to grow and build. And I realized that people were doing so much themselves and they weren't really being able to build their businesses as successfully as they want because they were being bogged down by the background stuff. So I always felt like there was a gap in the market to move a little bit further on from the virtual assistant term as such. It's quite easy for anybody to pick up basic admin for a company, but I wanted to make sure that we were going one step over that, as I mentioned, like providing that strategic support, really embedding ourselves and taking so much off their plate to make a business run better. The other side of it for me, and what's really important, is building the team that they want and the lifestyle and the work-life balance that they want. Again, in Dubai, sometimes the work-life balance isn't always there. People are working long hours every day, and they don't get much respite. And I think it's really important for people to have that division between their own lives, whether that's building another business alongside this job, whether that's looking after children, whether that's exercising. I wanted people to have a flexible work-life balance, and so they can perform as best as they can, and there shouldn't have to be the choice between a career and a lifestyle.
Yeah, makes absolute sense. And how long have you been in operation for?
We're just hitting 1 year in business in December, so still very early days.
Super exciting. It feels like the right time to be entering this sort of space, as virtual assistants is certainly on everyone's lips and minds. How's the uptake been? How's the last year been for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a little bit sometimes of a buzzword, and people think that virtual assistants are readily available, and there are so many around the world. So there's not really that we don't need to explain to people what a virtual assistant can do, which is good. The uptake has been good. I think there's always a little bit of nervousness around handing over parts of your business. As everybody who knows and starts a business, I've been in that situation myself as well. You've grown it yourself. You know exactly how you want things to run. So sometimes we have clients that know that they need help, but they're a little bit nervous to hand things over because they want to ensure that the level of service that you're delivering is how they would expect themselves. So that's a really important part for us, is the building the trust right at the beginning. So the first year has been, busy. Maybe, again, as business owners would say, you sometimes run before you can walk. You just have to go for it. And there was a time probably after about 6 months in business that I decided to scale back slightly, pause, take a look at where we're at, think about what we needed to change, what we needed to implement before we could scale again. Because so much was being done with clients, which was amazing, but we were neglecting the systems that were in place or how we can progress to the next stage, because there was so much client work coming in.
So when you originally started, I'm sure many of the tasks that you were doing were sort of handled on quite an ad hoc basis. And as you say, you were just rolling with the punches, taking what you could get because you wanted to see some initial momentum. You said that you sort of paused and needed to rethink and perhaps rebuild some internal systems so that you could have the framework around you to be able to deliver as volume and complexity grew. What were some of those systems that you needed to look at?
Yeah, I think it ranged from reviewing what services we offered to clients. So it's quite a wide range of services that we offered to begin with, including some around personal assistance, but like lifestyle assistance. And that was taking over a lot more time, whereas I felt that we were getting the most return and the most success through helping businesses. Alongside that, obviously, sometimes we help the business owner with personal things such as travel arrangements, etc. But I wanted to steer the focus back to just supporting businesses, really. And then internally, there was in making sure that we had systems in place. So upgrading, we used like Notion AI and a Notion as our kind of dashboard for the business. And I wanted to start automating a lot more things, like the onboarding process needed to be slicker. Every Friday, we give clients a review of hours we've worked that week, what tasks were completed, what tasks are outstanding. And those kind of things were just taking up time and were quite clunky. And it was really important to stop and just review how we can save our time in the back office to provide more service to the clients.
And would you say that your system project, for lack of better terms, are in place and you're happy with the framework, or do you still see some fragility in areas that require some work?
Yeah, I think there's always room to improve. As the business scales, as we bring more people on board working for us, there's always going to be areas that you can improve. SOPs will need to be rewritten, templates for client updates, onboarding frameworks, those kind of things may potentially have to change. Also, the world we live in with AI and everything that's coming out, there's always going to be something more that we could use to help us out and to keep one step ahead of the curve. So whilst they're working for us at the minute, I'm always like researching different AI tools, looking at what other people are using, ways that I could improve the systems in the background as well. Because ultimately, if we have that knowledge and understanding and slicker systems behind the scenes, then we can help our clients have those as well.
Yeah, it's like preaching to the converted, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What I found is as companies scale, there's often a trade-off between structure and flexibility that bites at some point. How do you decide where to enforce strict processes versus leaving sort of looser guardrails in place?
In terms of like our team or for the client?
I suppose we could talk about both. Let's talk about the team initially.
For me, it's like the remote model and the recruitment is so important. As people find in an early business, in a startup, recruitment is super important. It's not just about somebody's skills, it's about their personality. It's about the culture that you create in the business. It's about the trust that you have with that individual. Obviously, the team are intelligent, clever, experienced people. But for me, it was so important to bring people on board that will give you back the level of service that you need. So giving them flexibility and trusting them to work how they want to work means that you get the best out of them in return. It's very clear if somebody's not going to suit that model. So that is really, really important for me. And I make sure that the recruitment process is not like a long process, but it's more about getting to know them as an individual rather than what they've got on their CV, really.
And if we turn our attention to your clients now, providing a process means that there's consistency in what you're able to deliver to your clients. But how do you adapt that for an individual client who maybe doesn't want to stick within the process and needs to be a little bit more agile?
Yeah, I think it depends on the different clients, and we don't have a certain industry of clients in the VA office. We have a variety of clients throughout the business. So like you say, we have to adapt with what they need and what they require. And sometimes systems aren't the best thing to follow. Especially in startups, things are changing so much that you could waste a lot of time implementing a system that 2 weeks later, there's a huge 360 in the business and it was such a waste of time and things change. So it's really about spending time with the client, and those first 4 weeks of working with that client are so vital. And the client has to be willing to give you as much information as you need as well to make a difference. So it's about understanding really what the client needs. And also sometimes the difficult thing is trying to convince them that actually a system would be better. A lot of people don't want to maybe invest the time, invest money, training, etc., to implement a system. But actually in the long run, it will pay off for them. So it's that fine line of encouraging them, but not putting pressure on them, is what I find.
Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly a fine line to walk, because you probably just want to scream at them, if you do this, it will work. You need to trust me. But then from their perspective, oftentimes converting, what someone's saying will work into sort of real-time return on investment is really hard to quantify in your head.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about giving them evidence, which is hard before it's actually happened. Giving examples of maybe something that's happened with another client without obviously divulging too much information, or demonstrating to them a business similar in their industry and what they're doing. That's a key thing that we also do a lot of research on the other competitors in the market, because it's quite interesting to see how people run things differently. And then that also reassures the client that we understand their business and we know what's going on in the market of that business, but also sometimes helps them realize that actually to keep up with their competitors or do a better job than their competitors, they need to go one step beyond them.
So you've mentioned that you've had to make a couple of pivots in the last year, some that were forced, but some that were required to set various sort of frameworks in place so that you could scale the business. I mean, as a founder, I'm sure that you're constantly auditing and refining your operations to make sure that you are as efficient as can be as an entity. Do you have any frameworks or evaluation cycles that you rely on quite heavily to give you that sort of feedback?
We have KPIs and we have dashboards that I'm still trying to build and getting help building on Notion. I don't class myself as an expert in that area, but obviously I'm doing what I can. So it's a lot of data, really. I've always been quite an analytical person. My background when I lived in the UK before I came to Dubai was in data and analytics. So for me, that's like the juicy part of it. I like that, reviewing things. So that's one way, ensuring that we've got those KPIs and we've got those data to review. But ultimately, it's also client feedback. It's really important to have those feedback loops, regular check-ins with clients. Even if I'm not managing the client, I will just casually check in with them now and then to make sure what's going on. Sometimes it's quite hard, obviously, to get feedback. You're a bit nervous about getting feedback, but it's so important. So I think as time goes on, it's making sure that maybe every quarter that we're really reviewing what's going on, the status of where we're at, where perhaps clients aren't converting from the initial call, when clients are ending contracts or not extending their contracts when it's finished. It's really important to delve deeper into the reasons behind that in order to make changes in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've touched on this next point very briefly a few moments ago around clients increasingly wanting to see metrics around, utilization, return on investment, turnaround times, those sorts of things. How are you thinking about building a data layer? You may have already built it, but if not, how are you thinking about building a data layer or a reporting model that feeds that back to your clients?
Yeah, I think that's kind of like a difficult one, really, because we deal with so many different clients in different industries. The data that you need to collect on each client that relates to their business is so vast. There's probably not one product that would do that for us. So that is something that is in my mind that I'm thinking about. At the minute, it's difficult because the tasks we do for each client are different. But for some, if we're helping with marketing tasks, etc., there's always those kind of metrics that are built in, like Google Analytics and social media analytics and stuff, that you can easily access that data. But in other ways, it's quite difficult to prove to the client unless they can also see, because ultimately they come to us because they're overwhelmed. They've got so much going on. If their inbox starts going from 1,000 emails a day to 20 emails a day, they know that it's getting better. So you don't necessarily have to report back to them on that. They can see that. But I would like to create more of like a performance report for them, again, once a month, once a quarter, depending on who the client is. So they have a lot more facts and figures around it. As, for example, working with your VA at the VA office has meant that you have got this many hours back per week to work on something else, or your VA office has meant that you have onboarded 10 staff instead of 3 staff in a period of 4 weeks. Those kind of things, because also then it helps us as a business when we're going to future clients to be able to prove to them what we can do too.
Absolutely. I mean, I think those are very powerful KPIs to be able to present to not just your individual client, but if you could collate that around like a regional comparison, you are saving X amount of time per week by using the VA office, and in comparison to the rest of the GCC, for example, you're in the 50 percentile, something like that. That's super powerful.
Yeah, and I think for us, and one thing that I didn't touch on at the beginning, for those that don't know, obviously, when you employ somebody full-time in your business in Dubai, the UAE, you have to provide a visa for the individual, health insurance for the individual, etc. These are all huge costs, really, that add up. So by having a member of the VA office, okay, you're paying a monthly retainer fee, but you don't have all those additional costs. And your contract, it's not like a full-time member of staff. If you don't want them to be, you may have us for 6 months, hopefully longer, but some people just have a short project that they need you to work on for 6 months. So you can go in and help them without them having all those overheads. And I think that's a huge KPI for people, really, that you can say, well, actually, you only spent this much money and this was your return. Whereas if you had employed a full-time member of staff with all the overheads, who, like, the cost could have been a lot higher for that return. So it's also discussing that area with the client as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we sort of run with that scenario that you painted, if they were to be bringing a full-time employee on board, the onboarding phase would be taking a week to a month to sort of integrate them into the system. There's obviously You need to be talking about company culture, branding, trying to get them to buy into the ethos of the business. Whereas, I suppose, and that takes time before they're actually focusing on doing what you've hired them to do, their job.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas if you go with the virtual assistant, you don't need to spend a week to a month onboarding them and telling them about the brand and why we do this. They can focus immediately on the project at hand and start to deliver straight away.
Yeah, exactly. And just 2 weeks ago, we signed on a new client who was almost like a dream client, a client we wanted to work with and we had won. And within 24 hours, we had had a conversation. We had spoken about contract. We had spoken about what work needed to be done. They had paid the initial fee and the onboarding call had happened. And they were up and running. That is partly because their business is so efficient, which is amazing. Obviously, that doesn't happen in every business. But also that shows how quickly that you can get the support in place.
If you compare that to the traditional route of hiring, someone full-time, it's going to take you, at least a month to find the right person, maybe even longer. Yeah. And then you still need to onboard them. So, I think you're definitely checking the right boxes.
Yeah, you have to worry about people's notice periods if they're moving from a different job as well. Yeah. Especially here, you have to get their visa going. Sometimes then they have like medicals, those kind of things. So it can take a longer time.
Daisy, you mentioned doing your sort of research around AI and automation tools and, those tooling constantly maturing on a daily basis. It feels like every week there's a new update or there's a new tool that can do X, Y, and Z for me. And how are you thinking about what tasks need to be automated within the company versus what tasks need to be kept human?
Yeah. So I think for us, the way that we look at what could be automated, because I'm very aware that if you automate lots of tasks, that can cause a lot of confusion anyway. There's so many different aspects that can affect that automation. So it's looking at what tasks we do regularly, what tasks we're doing every day, and what tasks don't really have much differentiation. So what tasks are more or less the same every single day or every single time. So for example, the onboarding process of a new client doesn't really change that much after they fill out the form, after the initial calls, etc. But when you get to the stage of the form, when they filled out a form, it would then generate a new profile on our Notion database with all of their information, etc. That would ping off the contract to them. That would ping off the initial invoice to them, those kind of things. That doesn't really change. So for me, it was really important to automate that because when I first started the business and it was just me, I was manually writing out their onboarding form. Then I was manually creating a profile for them in Notion. Then I was manually generating an invoice, those kind of things. So yeah, I think I always stop and think about what tasks are repetitive tasks and what tasks are taking up a lot of time in order to prioritize what needs to be automated or could be automated.
And are you currently running any interesting pilots or experiments with some AI tooling that you can mention?
I can't say that it's very interesting. I mean, it's basic AI really. For me, we just use things, as I said, like Notion, similar to this, like Fireflies to organize like from all of our calls, and then that creates like summary documents. We use Zapier to do like the automations that we need. We've used Fixer for like email organization, etc. But I can't say that there's any like groundbreaking AI tools that we're using, even though I'm always, as I said, looking out for more, researching, seeing what people are talking about. And everyone's creating their own AI platforms all the time. So it's making sure that you're looking out to see if there's anything that could benefit us too.
If we turn our attention to your talent, your virtual assistants, I think a strength of yours is the sort of remote by design approach. Mm-hmm. But Remote work also complicates things like culture and career paths. How are you thinking about giving your virtual assistants a sense of growth, a sense of
Yeah.
belonging, and some longevity inside of the company?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of touched on it earlier. This is so important. Culture is hugely important and difficult to implement when you're fully remote. Um, I know that it's very common now for people to work remotely, but there's always normally an office for people to go to, etc. Whilst our clients are remote and the team work remotely, they are all based on the ground here in Dubai. So once a month, we would meet up. I'm also on hand to meet up with the team if they need more regularly. Um, Again, just to like catch up, can go for a walk along the beach. It doesn't have to be sitting formally working. It's just to build that kind of culture as well. Another thing is I always encourage the team to attend networking events. Networking is huge here in Dubai as well. That's how the majority of clients have come to the VA office, actually, from meeting them at networking events. And I think that's so important for the team to get out to meet new people as well and make sure they have that social interaction from that side. Then also, for me, it's about being able to build your career even with the flexibility, as I said. The team have complete flexibility to work at whatever time of day they want to. They can work on the weekend if they want. They can work in the evening. It doesn't matter when the hours are done as long as the client work is done. But then have different levels of promotion as well and understanding of what we're building in the VA office. One is a commission structure if they want to bring clients on board. Again, people have big networks here, so there may be somebody that they know. So if they bring somebody on board, they would get a percentage of the sale every month, etc. That gives people the wish and the want to build the role into however they want to. Some people love going out and making sales. Some people don't. So I wanted to include that as well, so they feel like they could make their client base how they like build it as they wish. Also, the business is only a year old. I don't know everything. And a lot of the team have a lot more experience in different areas than me. And I always want to create an environment where they can speak up or give suggestions. Once a quarter, we would kind of have like a meeting in person if we can or online to talk about what's happened in that quarter, what the goals are for the next quarter, and have an open dialogue of suggestions from them on how we can improve. I don't want anyone to ever feel like they can't suggest something to me, because you don't want, as just being the founder of a business, your own tunnel vision. It's always important, I think, to get advice and from other people who have different experience to you. So for me, that's really, really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you are certainly making the right moves to create a culture where everyone's voice is allowed to be heard. And it certainly helps that, everyone's essentially in the same city, even though there isn't a requirement for them to be in office. What I am quite interested to understand is whether you've designed a sort of performance management system with them where there is accountability and some feedback loops.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of what I was referring to earlier as well on our Notion database. So on the Notion database, it has overarching kind of performance feedback, direct feedback coming in from clients who have anonymous feedback forms as well. But also then you can delve deep into the team. And I want to continue to expand this as the team expands and as we grow, that it would have things like how many clients they're dealing with at the moment, what their billable hours are, what return they're giving to the clients, those kind of things as well. Obviously, the KPIs as an overarching business are to do with feedback primarily. returning customers. That's a huge one. If a client extends their contract or if a client refers you to somebody else, they're two major things that I focus on that shows that you're doing a good job. If they want you to continue helping them, you're doing a great job. If they tell their friends and family and other business owners about you, even better. But also, obviously, one that everyone refers to is financial as well. On the dashboard, you have the finance goals. We have obviously what we want to hit each month, what the next level is, what an aspiring goal is. So it's ensuring that each month the amount of revenue coming into the business hits those goals too.
Sure, absolutely. And if we focus our attention on client acquisition, I mean, you've mentioned that your VAs are incentivized to leverage their network. So it's almost like a bit of a partnership referral. You could also maybe refer to them as like essentially your internal sales team too.
Yeah.
Is that the only channel that you're utilizing to acquire new clients? Or if no, what other channels are you using?
The main one at the minute is word of mouth. As I said, I think that's the strongest referral system that you can get anywhere, and the one that I'm most proud of. A lot of our clients have come off doing a good job with another client, and that is something that I will always push. My role primarily is trying to step away from the operations really, and it's all business development. So I spend a lot of my time at networking events, out and about, telling people about the business, meeting people for coffee. LinkedIn, I regularly post on LinkedIn, not even just as in like a salesy pitch. I just talk about how the business is growing, what's going on, sometimes client stories, just about your personal life, building your personal brand really. And then that builds obviously relationships with people who may need the services as well.
And how do you think about expanding or extending relationships? I mean, beyond obviously delivering a really good service, what's your approach to retaining your clients?
I think it's them realizing obviously what you can do for them, but us being so embedded in their business that we are using our initiative to find different areas that could also be improved. Sounds harsh. I don't mean it that it's not working, but it's having that open mind that when you're perhaps working on a project for a client that's nearing completion, thinking about how that project is implementing other areas of their business and maybe looking at ways in which something could be streamlined within their business too. As I said, I'm so passionate about people seeing it not just as admin support. It's being like a strategic person in the business to really help push the success of that. So yeah, I think for me, it's about identifying areas of growth. It's about building that relationship with the client so you can have an open and honest conversation. Like, again, the clients are all over the world, but the majority have come from Dubai because that's where I am on the ground and that's where I've met the majority of people. So it's having a coffee with them every couple of months. Again, not to talk always about business, but you talk about life and then you move on to the business, checking in with how they're going, seeing what their goals are for the business, being really interested, wanting them to succeed. And then if they've got a new goal and they're like, well, actually, I'm working on this in the background, or this is going to come into fruition. It's like, okay, well, actually, we could help you with that in this way, or let's get involved in that. Like, you're happy with your VA, they're making a difference. So let them make a difference in that area too.
The concept of VAs and what you're doing at the VA office is relatively new on the scene. And oftentimes when there's a new initiative or something that shakes up the traditional, there's hesitancy from clients because it's new and they don't maybe understand it. And the idea of bringing virtually someone into your business environment and handing over your diary, for example, to them to manage can be, might not go down that well.
Yeah.
How are you managing the sort of the educational gap?
That's our biggest resistance. When I speak to people all the time, they're a bit nervous to hand things over, as you say. They're a bit worried about the cost of it. Is it worthwhile? Are they going to get the same return as if they had somebody sitting in their office with them every day working on things? So it's a purely educational thing and building trust. That's the only way really that you can do that. I think sales in general isn't anything to do with pushing people to sign on the dotted line. You get sales from being yourself. You get sales from building that relationship with them. I'm really passionate about building my personal brand and people liking me in a way, having that conversations with people, building rapport with people. I would never go in to meeting people at networking event saying, you should sign up to the VA office. It's all about building those relationships. And then ultimately people learn to trust you in that way. It's not easy. Some clients take to it straight away. Others, it takes time and they are reluctantly start drip feeding you work. Where you're like, okay, what else can I do for you? What else can I do for you? And then we say, can we do this for you? It changes from what can I do to you, but can we do this for you? It's going that one step beyond on a task that they've given you, preempting what else could come off the back of that and doing it already, showing your initiative, getting them to understand the extent of the work that we do. And then the buy-in comes. So it's not easy sometimes, clients to start with, or even when we get on discovery calls, etc. It's hard sometimes to show them the worth until they get into it. But then if we're consistently delivering work to a high standard, then they can see the return then.
And Daisy, if we look at the VA office from a macro point of view as a company, what is working really well?
I think for me now, it's the growth is steady. As I said at the beginning, it was growing too quickly and it needed to be refined. I'm quite happy at the minute with how it's growing. I'm looking forward to what's coming in 2026, so thinking about the next step, what can be improved, how we can expand, how we can stay one step ahead of the curve. What's working is just building the brand as such. For us, it's about getting out there, people understanding who you are, what you do, going to events and people are like, I've heard of the VA office. Amazing. That's really what is working at the minute. That's what I want to carry on, focusing on really.
Excellent. And on the flip side of that question, what isn't working well?
That's a good question. What isn't working well is, I guess what isn't working well so much is pushing the longer contracts from the beginning. Kind of going back to your point previously, that people are nervous, people aren't sure. So for them, they'd rather do shorter contracts as like a tester period. Whereas obviously for the business, for continuity, for forecasting, it would be better to have 6-month, 12-month contracts rather than the 3 months really that most sign up to. So it's about ensuring that we can prove our worth of a 6-month contract, 12 or a 12-month contract before the work has started.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you think, no, it certainly isn't, especially as we've established in a space that people are naturally averse to because it is so new.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you think about the next 3 to 5 years for the VA office, what kind of company do you want it to become? And
Yeah,
second part to that question, what impact do you want it to make on the businesses you work with?
that's a good question. The goals are to continue expanding. I want to start becoming a team that has more specialists in it. So we would have like a couple of HR specialists, marketing specialists, AI specialists, recruitment, like having a broader range, because the team can do those things already. But I'd like to have key individuals. So if a client comes in looking for marketing support, there would be a team of marketing experts. That's the goal, really, to keep expanding in certain like areas.
So expanding both internally in terms of your offering, but then I'd assume also then expanding geographically.
Yeah, exactly. Perhaps we have people on the ground. As I said, they don't need to be in Dubai. It just naturally has been that way. But our clients are all over the world. Some are in UK. One client's in Australia at the minute. So perhaps the VA office becomes global, where we have team members living all over the world as well, which would be amazing
I
for
was just going to
us.
say that would be amazing.
Yeah. I want the VA office to be the front runner in virtual assistant services. I want people to say straight off, what you need is someone from the VA office. In order to grow your business, in order to scale your business, in order to get things in order, you should speak to Daisy at the VA office, and one of her team would be amazing to help. Like, it would be amazing for them to help you. Like, big goals, but I feel like it's possible.
Well, the funny thing about goals is that you don't have them, you don't have anything to aim at.
Exactly. No, I just think it's important for people to realize what the business can do for them. So for me, in 3 to 5 years, I want it to be so super clear for people, but it's also got to have that personal touch. You have to say what you can do for the individual's business, for that individual. It can't just be a virtual assistant can save you this many hours a week. It's like a virtual assistant from the VA office can save you 5 hours a week in your certain business by doing this. That's relevant to their business.
Well, on that note, Daisy, if any of our listeners or viewers want to reach out, connect with you, connect with the VA office, they perhaps need a virtual assistant to help them with something in their business, where's the best place for them to do that?
Of course. So you're more than welcome to take a look at our website, which is www.vaoffice.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And we're also on Instagram and all the socials too. But I'm more than happy to have a chat with people through LinkedIn and then arrange a call at any time.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Aegance Offscript podcast. It really has been an interesting conversation, diving into the VA office as sort of a fledgling business less than a year ago to where it is today and your aspirations. I really look forward to seeing you crack those goals, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much for your time. It was great chatting to you.
That's it for today's episode of the Aegance Offscript podcast. If this conversation sparked something within you, a thought, a question, or a new way of seeing your own business, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. We'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.